Hi friends. All right, let's bring our lovely Photoshop file into After Effects and start working in animation. Okay, new phase of this life. Okay, so first I'm gonna go find After Effects and open it, After Effects 2022. Yours should be on your taskbar down at the bottom of your page, of your screen on your MacBook. It's gonna take a second to load. It might be to do some weird stuff as it loads, but we'll just close out those windows and move on. Okay, friends. So here we are. After Effects has opened. It's going to be a little smaller even than this on your screen. And it's going to ask you about this new project, okay? So we're going to just say new project here. I'm going to rearrange these panels just a little bit. Let's use this small screen version right here. So you got like default, learn, which has a whole learning tab. We're not gonna mess with that. Standard, small screen is the one you want because you have a small screen. So let's start there. And let me actually make it even a little smaller on my screen just so that it looks closer to what yours is gonna look like, okay? If you need more stuff, this little twirly gives you these options. These are all other layouts for After Effects. We're just gonna start here though, okay? So what I'm gonna start with is creating a new composition. So a composition is like a file within After Effects. And the place I'm gonna start for that is our folder. Remember our old folder where we have our project file, and then we have our composited Photoshop file. It's still open in Photoshop, which doesn't hurt because if you want to make adjustments to individual layers, you can do it in Photoshop and it'll transfer. Dynamic link will transfer it into After Effects and that can be really helpful. So let's take this and just drag it over here into the project, right? So this box right here is where you want it to land. Now it's importing it and it has a pop-up here and it says import kind, and there are three options here. You can import it as footage, which would just bring it in as a flat image over time, as a composition, or we can do composition, retain layer sizes. And this is the one you want because you want to bring in all of these layers from Photoshop in the same ratios that they are in your Photoshop file. So we say this, okay? We also say editable layer styles, okay? That means that it's gonna match everything you did in Photoshop and you can also continue to edit those styles within After Effects. Great, so we say okay. So now over here you will see your composition. And this is like there's like a weird thing happening here. I don't know why. There it is, okay. Usually it just pops up at the top and I was like, I don't know why it's hiding it in some weird place. Okay, cool. So we have a composition here and we have all of these individual layers as separate Photoshop files. This is just the way After Effects breaks it down. You don't need to worry about that. You can twirl that closed. This composition now includes everything, right? If you right click on it and go to composition settings, this is where you set things like how long of a piece of media are we creating, like how long of a video animation are we creating, what is the frame rate, all of that stuff happens here. So let's change the duration. I have mine to 4 minutes and 30 seconds. I don't think we need more than 3 minutes for this, although if you're doing it for real, you might want it to be even longer so that sunrise, like the sunset moonrise thing happens over a longer period of time. But let's go ahead and put us at about 3 minutes for now, and you can play with that later. If you want to go change it again, you just right click and edit those composition settings at a later date. It comes in at the right size because you brought it in sized correctly. And now when you double click on it, you will see a whole stack of stuff, right? The layers that are invisible remain invisible and everything else is stacked the way that you would have left it stacked when you built your Photoshop file, okay? So we're gonna delete things that we're not using, right? So like I'm not using layer 0, I can delete that. They still exist in the Photoshop file, they're just not tracking through here, and that's okay. I'm also going to play with some different settings here. If you look down here at the bottom, I don't know what settings you'll automatically have enabled, right? It's possible it'll come in looking just like this. If you click on this guy, it changes, it opens up motion blur, adjustment layers, 3D layers. This is not stuff you really need, so you can keep that turned off. This one here you might want, because this lets you use the different blend modes that you might encounter in Photoshop, right? So if you have this turned on, you can do stuff like change from normal to overlay, right? And so then it now has a blend mode, just the way that we can use blend modes in Photoshop, we can use them here in After Effects as well. So that could be something that you want to play with, right? Or you can just leave it normal, okay? Each layer in After Effects also has this little twirl down transform menu. So this is where you can make something scale up or scale down, right? This is where you can change position, move it around. You can also do that just grabbing it on the screen, right? I'm gonna just bring those back to what they were, but that is all listed there. And then opacity is how solid something is, right? That will be your friend in a minute, okay? The key idea, now let's get going, with After Effects, right, is that we are able to fade things in and out. We're able to animate these different properties, right? So my rooftop is always going to be there. I'm gonna just click the lock so I don't accidentally mess with it. If I want to layer an effect over it, right? If I want to have, for example, a blue, like a dim blue cast come across the rooftops when it is the night, I can do that, and I can add that at the appropriate point. But for now, I'm just gonna lock that roof layer so that I don't mess with it unnecessarily, okay? I think my clouds are kind of a lot right now, so I think I might just reduce their opacity a little so that they're not quite so present. So I've now reduced them to like half as dark, right? So now they're still there, but they're less present. I feel a little better about that in terms of my sky, okay? My moon, I don't need it yet, right? It's still the daytime, or it should be. So I'm gonna just slide that moon layer down the timeline. If you zoom the little mountains at the bottom, these are your time, right? 15 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever. Let's say this moonrise isn't gonna happen for a while. I can just like move the moon kind of off to the end, out of my way. Don't need it yet, right? Let's see, the sun, probably don't need it quite yet. The sunset sky, don't need that yet. Slide that out of the way. The day sky is where we're starting. The night sky is gonna be later, right? The sun itself, let's start with that, and we'll have the sun slide down, right? And maybe I'll move it, maybe I'll pick up that sun, right? If I select it here, now I can pick it up and move it. Maybe I'm gonna have the sun kind of set over here, right? And then the moon rise over there, just so that there's some sort of differentiation. So I'm going to start with the sun kind of up in the very tippy top of the sky. It's even off of the canvas right now. And then I'm going to animate it, okay? So let's take the sun and we want to animate his position, okay? So that is this element in his transform capabilities. So if you click the little stopwatch, that will place a keyframe, right? Same thing, right? If I wanted to have the clouds just moving ever so slightly, I could do this animation with the keyframe, right? But we're not messing with that right now. Let's have the sunset in 1 minute. Ooh, and then the sunset sky comes up, but we'll play with that in a second, okay? So let's have the sun go from all the way up here to behind this building in 1 minute. So the first position I have on the timeline where my little timeline playhead is, right, is all the way at 0 and it's above the whole surface, okay? Then I slide over here to about 1 minute in, which is just about where I had that sunset when I slid that sunset over. That's where I placed it. And at that point, I want the position to be below the building, right? So I'm gonna just, using that position tool, slide it down to below the building, okay? So now you will see a sun dropping through the sky to behind the building, okay? An actual sun might have a little bit of an arc to it. So if it were the real sun, right, it might start a little bit over here and then kind of slide over and drop behind a building. So maybe something like that, right? The other thing that happens with the actual sun is at the very top, it's going to be smaller, and at the bottom, it's going to be bigger. So if we sort of start by holding shift, it'll snap to those keyframes that we have. So we're going to start here and we're going to say, hey, start out a little smaller, little sun. And then when you hit the sunset, the horizon, let's be a little bigger, okay? So now we have a sun. Start a little smaller, sun. Oh, I got a keyframe. Bink. And then over here, become a little bigger. And now let's see. Yeah, so it starts a little smaller. As it gets to the horizon, it gets bigger. Cool. Okay, so now the last thing I'm going to do is fade in this sunset sky, right, as the sun is setting, okay? So let's just start from the same beginning spot, okay? And twirl open our sunset sky background, twirl open our transform, and we want to play with opacity. So we're going to start at 0, hit our keyframe, and then we're going to slide over to this 1, right? Maybe even a little past that 1, and have that opacity go all the way to 100, okay? So now you'll see your sun creeping across your sky as it gets nice and orange, okay? And I think that that orange actually can happen even a little earlier, right? It can get orange before the sun hits the horizon, right? Nice, beautiful, right? Isn't that lovely? So now we have a sunset thing happening, okay? So then the next phase of this equation will be, we can cut out our day sky because we don't need it anymore. And since we're not fading it, we've got this sunset up at 100%, the sunset sky. I can come grab the end over here, and I can just pop it away. It's not changing the image because that sunset is fully faded in. And then we have a night sky that comes in after that, right? So now my day sky's gone, got my night sky, and to transition from sunset to night, I want to fade sunset sky out. Let's see what that looks like, right? So I'm going to put another keyframe for opacity by clicking the diamond right here. And you're seeing these are your keyframes, right? So I click that little diamond to put another opacity keyframe in. I'm going to take plenty of time. So let's give it like 45 seconds, fade that out, right? Ooh, I like it, it's working. I think I want a little bit less clouds to happen at the same time as that sunset fades out. So I'm gonna come up here, I'm gonna twirl my clouds open, I'm gonna hit that opacity keyframe on it, right? I'm gonna hold shift, find this keyframe here, and I'm just gonna pull these clouds out even a little more because it's nighttime. You wanna see the twinkly stars coming through the clouds, okay? Nice, nice, love. All right. So now I can just scrub across my timeline and see what I got, right? So I have this lovely sun coming down, hitting the horizon in a beautiful sunset. Then the sunset fades out and the clouds fade down. We have the star-covered land. A moon just popped on, which is not what we wanted to have happen. That's okay though. Let's move, oops, I moved the clouds, not my intention. Sorry, clouds. Twirl you closed again. Twirl sunset sky closed again. Let's move our moon, right? So here's our moon. If I click on it, now I can grab it. I'm gonna have him come down here and just kind of float his way across, okay? So I'm gonna start with him off camera. We're gonna twirl him open, twirl open his transform, give him a position, okay? And then I think, again, like 45 seconds later, let's have him land where we want him to be. Somewhere over here, maybe, right? If we want him to do, so right now he's just kind of doing a regular trajectory. If you want him to kind of make a lovely arch through the sky, bring him up a little bit there in the middle, right? So now he's like, wee, floating across the sky. He does like a weird thing here, but we can fix that. Hold shift. See this little tail? And just kind of bring it up so that it doesn't do that weird little wiggle, right? There he goes. Nice little moon, right? Similar to our sun, the moon is going to seem smaller as it gets higher in the sky. So why don't we start down here before he comes in, give him a scale of maybe even a little more than 100. Click that scale, keyframe stopwatch, slide over here, scale it down. And now our moon, he's in the sky, okay? So now let's look at it, right? This all happens like a little bit of a time lapse. I hit my space bar and it will play back the scene, right? Sun is slowly setting. What I'd like to do now, let me save this first. Gotta always save it, Lily. Oh geez. All right, let's save it on the desktop in digital design, sunset to sunrise, project files, and this is animation, okay? Let's call this good for today, okay? So that's as far as I expect you to get. I will make a separate video about export because that's kind of a whole other thing. And we will begin playing with that in a minute. So I think the stuff that we will be looking at here, right, is basic keyframes, transform properties here in After Effects, basic animation, just fading opacity, changing position, and then we can add in some of the other effects later. We can add in a glow or changing our color correction for our rooftop. That kind of stuff can be in a separate video. So we'll look at that in a little while. I think that's it for today, and let me know as you have questions working through the project. Thanks, friends. Bye.